Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Broken Hungry. I am your host, Dara Sweat, and this is the first episode of 2024. I know that I said in the last episode of 2023 that, it's going to be February. And then as January was going by, I was like, you know what? I could probably do an episode earlier than February. I can make that happen. And, it was just like everyone that said they were going to circle back after the holidays circled back and work has just been going crazy. And as frustrated as I was, because I really wanted to get back into recording, I really wanted to set up the camera and do all the things and get all the things, going for you guys again. I also, as I was in my morning time and my quiet time with God, I also felt like him being like, this is a good thing because it gives you the time to get yourself balanced, to get yourself in check, and to get things going for the new year that you want for yourself. And then you can hop on and then you can tell everybody what you've been learning over the last month into the new year. So we are going to take this as the Lord wanted me to have this really be February that things got launched again for, I guess you could call it a new season. I don't really do the season thing anymore. I just kind of post an episode when I post it. And I've got a lot of cool things planned for this year. Some interviews that are in the back pocket that I will be dropping as we go through these next couple of weeks and stuff. But, as it's 2024, it dawned on me that this podcast has been around for almost 4 years. So crazy to think about. I think March 1st of 2020, when Ellen was still doing this with me, I think that was the first Beyond Broken Hungry episode. And, those of you who have been along for the ride, it's been pretty rocky. Things changed. I rebranded, but it's fine. That's life. I feel like we're always kind of rebranding in our own ways, improving and making things better. So this is just my physical proof of that actually happening. But I mean, it's still insane to me that I can be like, yeah, I have a podcast. I've had a podcast for 4 years. It's just, I'm so grateful for this because being somebody who is a leader and whose dreams are to inspire people and positivity, being able to have this platform to do that is just amazing to me. And my dream of radio and wanting to be a famous radio talk show host and be able to give people little bits of positivity in the 15 or 60 seconds that I might have in between songs. That was awesome. And that was a dream that I chased for a really long time. And I still love that. That's why I have this podcast. But to be able to do that through this platform and to receive some of the feedback that I've gotten, I know that I'm not reaching millions of people. I don't have 1 million followers on my personal or on Beyond Broken Hungry, but just for the fact that some people have messaged me and been like, I'm so grateful for your advice. You really just break things down for me so simply. Something I thought was so complicated before is just so much, I make so much sense now. And I just love your recipes. I love following your page. I love hearing from you, blah, blah, blah. It really it motivates me more to keep learning and growing so that I can share what I'm learning and how I'm growing and try to simplify it for those who don't have to necessarily go the same path that I went. I want to help make that path a little bit easier for you. So for those of you who have been along for the ride this last 4 years, I'm very grateful for you. This is going to be another fun ride. So buckle up. It will continue to be a fun ride just because that's on brand for me. But I'm just very happy that you stuck with me in the consistent times and the inconsistent times. When I need to step back, because when I do step back, it's really just because I want to produce a good product. And if I'm not in the mindset or, if I don't feel that I'm in a position to lead, I'm not going to. I know where I stand. I know how to stay in my lane. So, sometimes I go through a season where I need to be in solitude and I need to do and practice what I preach. And then there's sometimes where I'm killing it and I'm doing it. So I want to give that advice and spread that. So, you guys are truly worth me showing up and doing this. And I just cannot say thank you enough for giving me those little breadcrumbs here and there to keep me going on this. So Couple updates before we get into the nitty gritty of the podcast. Doug has officially moved in. I live with a man. It's a lot dirtier around here. I don't know what he has on his hands at all times. I swear I live with a 12-year-old. It's fine. No, but it's cool. It's really great having my best friend live with me, essentially. I mean, now I don't have to pack a bag every weekend. Now I don't have to like figure out who's staying over where. Do I have to bring the dogs? Does he have to bring the dogs? Now it's just like, he lives with me. He can't get away from me. I live with him. He lives with me. It gets really entertaining over here. I've had a lot of my friends be like, if I could just be a fly on the wall for you guys' conversations, we should have our own reality show. But yeah, anyways, it's just nice having each other under the same roof, not having to go back and forth. Obviously some learning curves and growing pains as he like first moved in, because we both were single for a long time before we met each other. And even while we were dating, like we still lived, he lived at his house, I lived at my house, and, we had our own lives, we had our own routine. So putting another person into that, has its obstacles, we'll say. Nothing really complicated about it, but it has its obstacles. And if there's one thing about my relationship that I take a lot of pride in, is that we don't argue about the same thing twice. We might bicker over something a couple times, but it's not like fighting. Anytime we have gotten into any kind of fight, it really has been like, that was the one time we talked about it, we figured it out. And sometimes it takes a couple times for any relationship, like you're trying to tell your partner something that might not be the way that they receive it. So you have to learn how to communicate those things. So that's been a big thing for me, because I've just been very much like, well, this is like, I'm sorry if you took it that way, but this is, so like I'm trying to work on, being patient in how I respond, which is, it's going. Like God, when I pray for patience, God doesn't give me patience. He gives me opportunity to be patient. So we are totally opportune lately, but that's fine. And then I was going to do a competition. Just a side note, we'll switch the subject. We'll talk about Doug later. I was going to be doing a team competition. By the time this airs, it would have been the weekend prior to that. So as I'm recording, it would be like this coming Saturday. I'm recording on Monday, before the Monday that I release this. So I was going to be doing a competition this Saturday, but unfortunately, because the venue that we registered for, they didn't have enough people sign up that they had to qualify for continuing the competition. So unfortunately, we can't do it anymore, but we'll be getting a refund. So that's good. Super bummed about it though, because we got like these sick matching outfits that were custom designed, but look at God. I'm sure you guys have seen on the socials already. The design that I created for this competition, the woman who owns the apparel company is actually a woman at my gym. And she was like, well, since you guys can't do the competition or whatever, she was like, why don't I just like make this like a collaboration with you and, sell it on my store and your followers can get a discount, whatever. And I was like, yes. So if you guys go to Bamfwear, I think it's like bamfwear.etsy.shop or something like that, or just go follow her on Instagram. It's just Bamfwear. It stands for bad A mother F. It's a whole lot of curse words in there, but it's cool. Local owned. She's a designer and she's super sweet. So it's been cool, like to do that and get a taste of what that's like. And the team name that we were going to compete with was Wine Now, Wad Later. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. So I was obviously like wine and kettlebell and hearts, because I love to work out. And the competition theme was kind of Valentine's Day Massacre. So it was supposed to be like love, Valentine's, whatever. So that's where I got the inspo for it. I gave her like the idea. She made it so much better and, went with it. And now I have a collab piece. So if you guys want to check it out, go to Bamfwear Instagram and click on their link and you can get 10% off the collection using Dara 10. So that was really exciting. But with all that being said, it did get me, the competition getting canceled was obviously super bummed, but it put me in a position to get in the mindset of like doing multiple days again, like doing 2-a-days and training and getting prepped for a competition. And so the next competition I'm going to be doing is a solo competition. called Atlantic Coast Classic. It's going to be in Daytona Beach, and it'll be in June. So I've got plenty of time, but not really. I'm saying that now, and then all of a sudden it's going to be here. So already in that mindset, doing 2-a-days. I'm training for the gate, which is a 15K. So it's like 9.3 miles right now. I've never ran that far before. Some people are like, oh, that's not that bad. Running a mile is not so fun for me. So right now I'm up to 4. This week I actually have to try to get a couple 4s and a 5-miler in. But I posted on my story this morning before I recorded. I was sick over this past weekend. No fever or anything, thankfully. And I beat it, but was waking up feeling a little sore throat, it's kind of lingering. I've got a cough. You can probably hear a little bit of congestion. I think it's gone away mostly. I was like on cue or something. So I'm still battling with that. So I took today to let my body have like one more day of rest, and then I'll probably start picking up tomorrow. But, ease back into it. That's the whole point of this podcast really is, to tell yourself if you need to rest, or your body's going to tell you to do it for you. So I'm not just going to go from being sick to immediately doing 3 days, as much as I would love that. So I gotta ease myself back into it. So, and one other update that I have for you guys. Wow, 12 minutes into this has just been me gabbing. I'm getting to the good stuff soon, I promise. First episode of the year, we're going to make it a little bit longer. I have been going to the chiropractor. And before you go, oh my God, the chiropractor, she does not do snap, crackle, pop. It's not like the typical, they're going to hold your neck and crack your neck or pop your back or whatever. She aligns you on this mat, and then she has this little machine that does those, literally clicks and then like aligns your body. And then she's been doing like lower back adjustments and leg adjustments as well. And I'm gonna have her on the pod as well as sometime soon, just because she's got so much knowledge to bring for all of that. But just from the couple of weeks that I've been going to her, I'm telling y'all, I did not know my body could move the way that it did. Like this engaging muscles that I didn't realize that weren't being engaged properly because of my unalignment. Like it's crazy. So I just very, very, very pro going to this kind of chiropractor. So I want to have her on here this year so we can talk a little bit more about what that means and why I feel like everybody should go. So getting right into it, today I want to talk about how setting realistic goals is key to success and personal fulfillment. So it's a new year. I think the last 12 minutes of me babbling about all of my things going on, we obviously got to that point, right? The title of the episode is Setting Realistic Goals in 2024. So obviously that is what this podcast episode is about today. So I think some of us are still in that new year, new me phase, right? We have all these resolutions and goals, and we're hyped. We're getting after it. We're in the gym. We're drinking water. We're doing our daily devotionals. We're doing our journal. But as reality starts to set in and the circle backs from the holidays, I'm experiencing that. I mentioned that earlier. Pile up on your desk. Sometimes we tend to slip up, and then that I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it next week, or so on and so on. We'll kind of start to slowly creep up. It just takes a little breadcrumb for that to become a whole loaf. So 80%, that's a bit, I'm going to speak closer to the microphone. 80%, 80, big number. 80% of people quit on their New Year's resolutions by mid-February. I'm getting closer to the microphone so that I can hopefully get a little more emphasis on that. By mid-February, y'all, 80%. That is, we are going to be 20%. Okay. We're going to continue to push through our goals. I'm going to help you avoid that. We're going to talk about some things that will really help avoid falling into that pit of giving up. Oh, well, I screwed up already. And so I'm just going to let the rest of I screwed up not even 5%, 2% of the year. And so now I'm going to let the rest of the 98% be down the drain because of this 2%. No, ma'am. No, sir. We're not doing that. On my journey, I have gone through so many phases, good and bad. Sometimes y'all have been through them with me. I can't even speak. Y'all have been through some of those with me, as I'm very vocal about some of the stuff I go through on this podcast. So it's been up and down. In the past couple of years, I would say the past maybe like year and a half, 2 years, have truly been the 2 years that like I finally found that these things were clicking and that foundation was being built. That foundation started to become more solid because I was working on the foundation. So now it's time to build up. But I spent the last couple of years fobbling and figuring out like how to build this foundation. And the last couple of years is really when it all started to click in the ways that I've been like praying for and hoping for and working towards. So this year, my word of the year is intentional. Last year, it was relentless. I felt like I really had to live up to that word. I feel like I really did. So this year is intentional. I want to be intentional with my time, with my friends, with the Lord, with my family, with work. It's just intentional about everything. Like if I got to do one task, I'm going to finish that task, be intentional about that task before I move on to the next one. And I'll share some of my goals with you guys. This year I did something a little bit different. Usually, I have like my 6 categories and, I do a couple things like under that and everything. And I still do that. I still have like those goals because some of those things are just ongoing. They're never going to really have an end to them, like keeping my house clean. I live with a man now. They'll never have an end. We have 3 dogs. It will never have an end. So I'll constantly be needing to continue those habits of putting things away right where I found them, when I found them, cleaning on a weekly basis, daily basis, et cetera, et cetera. So some of my goals I'm really focusing on this year is less time scrolling and more time reading and writing. And what I mean by this is when I wake up in the morning and I do my devotion, after I'm done with my devotion, usually I will just kind of like use that excuse to finish my coffee and like scroll on social media. What I've been doing the last few weeks into this new year is I finish my Devo and then I grab a book. So right now I'm reading Damon John's Rise and Grind, and I've been really enjoying it. And I'm just reading 10 pages a day. So 5 pages front and back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sometimes it's a full chapter. This morning I stopped right in the middle of a chapter at a breaking point, but that was my 10. So I've been reading 10 pages a day. And some of the chapters are very enlightening. I'm highlighting like crazy. So then after I want to write some stuff down. So I'll write. And then sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, like this was good, and I'll take some of the inspo with me, but I don't need to write about it. So what I want to do is once I'm done reading the full book, I want to, kind of write like a blog post or, an article about what I learned from reading that. So instead of going on social media to get inspiration, quote unquote, I'll sometimes make that excuse for myself to get inspo for content that I want to do. I'm reading, I'm writing. For my career, I'm reading articles that are relevant to my job instead of just scrolling on social media. Is my engagement suffering from my social media? Yeah, it is. But you know what? I don't care because I'm like the whole point is to not be so engulfed in social media that I'm like not learning and I'm not just like watching TikToks and getting thing from that. So that's one of my things, my big thing. Another thing, 10 pages a day. That's, I just kind of went over that. Daily walks and podcasts. So obviously I've been sick, so I haven't walked these past couple of days, but even if it's just like one loop around my neighborhood is about a half a mile. So even if it's just a longer walk with the dog where instead of just letting her go out to go pee, go to the bathroom, I'm just taking her around the whole block. So she gets some steps in, I get some steps in, whatever. And then listening to a podcast. I adore Ali Yost and her new podcast, Coffee with Christ on Ice. It's a huge one that I listen to. Janina Amapola's Happy and Healthy is a great one as well. I talk about Jake Thompson and Compete every day on this podcast all the time. He is a huge inspiration for me. What is another one? Chasing Excellence is another great one. And then I'm in a BNI networking group. So they have like a BNI thing that's kind of like specifically for them and they're kind of short. So I listen to them. I try to listen to a podcast every single day. I'll listen to it while I'm drinking coffee, while I'm getting ready. Sometimes if I feel like putting it on YouTube because they have a YouTube channel, I'll do that too. And I'll just kind of listen while I'm doing other stuff. So that's been a thing for me. And another one is don't get hurt training for comps. So far, so good. Another one is do well at Atlantic Coast Classic. That's that competition I was talking about. So that's just want to not get hurt and do well in that competition. Stay in front of my finances. So this has been a never-ending cycle of restarting and going over and restarting. But after last year, I finally set some good systems for myself. So like now I'm just implying those. it's easier said than done, especially because I am like a you can't take it with you and you die kind of person. But I do have a 401k. So, I have made some big adult decisions that I've been paying into for 5 years. So like future Dara is set, current Dara is getting with it. And then the last one is I want to take more courses to level up my career. So there might be some more news to share, but I'm not going to say anything just yet. So stay tuned to that. So those are my goals. Notice how they're not super specific. Like I keep them pretty vague, but also touch on almost every aspect of my life. Like the only thing that I would say is like specific is like 10 pages a day. Like read 10 pages a day. Like that is specific. I am physically reading 10 pages a day, Monday through Friday. Saturday if I feel like it. Sunday is to the Lord and rest. So I don't read too much business motivation on Sundays. But those are some things that you can kind of think about as to like how those apply to your life. So without me babbling anymore, here are some pieces of advice to help you set to achieve some realistic goals. Number 1, start small. If you start with smaller achievable goals, this will help build confidence and momentum and make it easier for you to tackle more objectives later on. Example of this, it's in regards to my spiritual journey. I've had a couple of people like ask me like, how can I get closer to God? Like things like that. I am in no way, shape or form like a perfect person with that. I started this podcast off saying I live with my boyfriend and I'm not married to him. So, do that with what you will. But my whole point was like, I wanted to get closer to God. And, I went to church, grew up Catholic, I did all that stuff. But I was like overwhelmed with like the Bible. It's kind of a big, large book, and it's a little confusing if you don't really know where to start or what to do. And it's not one of those that's just like you read start to finish. It's kind of like you can do that. People do that, but that wasn't really like what I wanted to like learn how God speaks to me. And there's a unique way to do that for everybody. So all I did was I started every day. I would go to proverbs31.org and read their devotion. It has like a Bible verse, sometimes a few Bible verses like tied with it. And I would keep my Bible next to me just so I could like open it. Cause it was like, I felt like if I opened my Bible, it was like, boom, Holy Spirit. Like that's just kind of how I feel. So I would open it up just so that I could feel that routine start to build and I could like recognize the Holy Spirit when it was around. And then like the Proverbs 31 has the First 5 app, and they do like a more in-depth devotional where like they'll do some of their devotionals could be tied to reading a specific book in the Bible. Some of them are about a specific topic. So it's and you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want to jump in on. So I started doing that, and that was like diving a little bit deeper, and as opposed to just quick 5-10 minutes. It was maybe turning into like 15-20 minutes in the morning where I was kind of doing that. And then I started following Janina Hampola, which I just mentioned, who I love, and followed some of her monthly Bible challenges. So like every month she has like a different Bible book that she'll have like with her followers that they'll read, and she does like a chapter a day and has like a discussion on it and stuff like that, and kind of breaks it down in a way that's a little more comprehensible, I would think. So I started doing that, and then because I wasn't really keeping up with exactly how they were doing it, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to, instead of just throwing my hands up and being like, well, I can't keep up with this Bible study with this reading a chapter a day, so I'm just going to whatever. I was like, well, I'm going to just do it my way. Like, I'm going to read at my pace. I'm going to read a chapter a day of whatever book I want to read. I'll take some notes, I'll highlight it, and I don't necessarily have to be following it. And then that's just kind of one thing led to another. And next thing I know, I'm checking off like 5 to 7 books in the Bible that I've read start to finish. And I feel like just more knowledgeable with the Bible from that. So, if your goal is to eat an elephant, you have to do it one bite at a time. So maybe, being closer to God and like reading the Bible isn't like something for you, but like, how can that relate to you? Like it fits your fitness goals. You know what I mean? Like start with just walking. You don't have to like start off with like this crazy gym membership. Just like get in the habit of doing something every single day consistently that works for your schedule. Number 2, stay flexible. One of my favorite quotes of all time that changed my perspective on life. Really, I heard this and it was like the ball dropped, the doors opened, the spotlight came down. Like it was so revolutionary to me. And it's by John Acuff. And he said on a podcast that I was like listening to through HSN. It was so random. And I would probably not have heard this had I not listened to that podcast. But he said, you have to be just as flexible as you are disciplined with your goals. that resonated with me because I had always felt so much defeat whenever I had a plan and then life lifed and I wasn't able to do what I planned. You ever like write everything down and you're like, from this point to this point to this point to this point, and you have it solid and you know exactly what you're doing. And then something gets in the way of that. Something throws that off and you can't do your plan exactly how you thought that you wanted to or how you planned it out that you were going to. If you're not flexible with your goals, that was going to wreck you. You have to be just as flexible as you are disciplined. So with that new mindset, like it helped me breathe and know that I can still get things done just because it didn't go perfectly. And for a type A perfectionist, I am the oldest daughter. That is hard. But having that mindset is honestly so freeing because it's like, okay, you know what? That's fine. I could do it here. I can move this around here. Being a little bit more flexible instead of like, oh my God, if this doesn't happen exactly the way I want it to, the world is going to end. Like having that mindset just really changed things for me. Being open to adapting your goals as circumstances change. Life is dynamic. And being flexible allows you to navigate unexpected challenges and seize new opportunities. So periodically, you're going to want to look at your goals and maybe reassess them. Maybe like, okay, like I didn't reach it exactly how I wanted to here, but like, where's some wiggle room here? That's fine. We're still on our way. We're still making progress. The deadline date just might get pushed back a little bit, and that's okay. As long as you're continuing to make progress, it's okay if you have to push back those things. If needed, just adjust your goals based on what you've learned and experienced. Take positive out of it. Okay, what have I learned at this point? How can I get better? How can I make this maybe a faster system or a better system? What can I do here? Number 3, celebrate those milestones. If you get to a certain point, like you got to do it. You got to acknowledge and celebrate your achievements along the way. This positive reinforcement will help you maintain motivation and keep you focused on your journey. If your goal is to run 10 miles without stopping, you need to train your body to do that. How can you run 10 miles if you can't run one? Okay. So, I've been training this 15K and it's about 9.3 miles. So not quite 10, but I've never ran more than 4 miles at a time. So the past few weeks, like I've been training, it's been like 2 to 3 miles and depending on the day. And then like each week as I get closer, that will increase and increase and increase. But if I'm not able to run a mile, I can't run a 10K. And it's not, I'm not talking about speed. I'm not talking about fast. I'm talking about like, whatever. There's a certain amount of time that I want to do this in, but it's very, 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 very generous. But like if you've never ran a mile before, run that mile. Check that mile off your list. Get good at running that mile. Get comfortable with that. Then add another mile. Then add another. Then add another. So on and so on and so on. We tracking here? And then until you get to that 10 miles, but you got to start somewhere. How do you handle it? One bite at a time. Number 4, seek support and accountability. Have a group of people, some friends, your family that you trust, that you can tell your goals to, that are going to be supportive of you and uplift you and keep you accountable to reaching those goals. So if, having a support system can make the journey like so much more endurable and increase your chances of success. Being a part of Graham has been the best thing for me because I am surrounded by people who constantly talk about how to make themselves better and how to achieve their goals. And we check in with one another on how that's going. You can go far by yourself, but you'll go even further with support. Number 5, focus on the process, not just the outcome. This part was hard for me to get because it's like, I wanted the A, and I would just study to get the A. And then the test would happen, I'd get the A. And then I was like, okay, where is all that information? Oh yeah, it is dumped out of my brain because I just studied enough to get the A. I didn't study enough to like learn or really be benefited by the knowledge that I was, giving to myself. So if you're enjoying the journey and focusing on the steps that you're taking to achieve those goals and help you embrace the learning opportunities and personal growth that comes out of this pursuit of your objectives. So, my outcome of the example I gave earlier with getting closer to God is obviously to do that. But during my journey, getting closer to God, I'm learning so much more about who he is and who I am in his eyes and in this world and what my life really means, to be here, and how I'm supposed to speak to not only myself, but to other people as well. Like, it's really, really helping my personal mental health journey, just knowing more about God and how to hear him and how to know how he's speaking to me, and how to discern, is it God or is it the enemy, or is it just me and my silly human self who doesn't know better, trying to come up with these things on my own rather than turning to God. So it's not just my relationship with God that I'm getting out of this pursuit of him. It's learning so much and learning how to know that it's him. Like I said before, like when you ask, I've been asking for patience. I pray about some anger issues that I tend to have sometimes, that I've opened up on this podcast about, and God does not just give it to you. He gives you an opportunity to be patient. He gives you an opportunity to be slow to anger, to really think about things. So that's kind of how that's happened for me. Like, it was as simple as like, oh, I just want to get closer to God. But now I'm able to be silent a little bit more and think before I speak. And to somebody else who's not a Christian, maybe that looks different. Maybe there's another way to go about that. And if you do, that's awesome for you. This is just what worked for me and how that got to me. Training for the 15K. My goal is to run that far without stopping. But in the process, the journey to reach that outcome is that my cardio is getting better, which is helping my performance in the gym overall, improving my nutrition, because I want to keep my body nourished and energized enough so that I can complete these runs, workouts, and regular day-to-day things. And it's also adding to my fat loss goals. So the destination is the 15K, but the process is all of this other stuff that if we're so focused on the outcome, we're gonna miss all of that. So focusing on the process and not the outcome. When we focus on the journey, there's so much more than the end goal. So to recap, pieces of advice to help you set and achieve realistic goals. Number 1, start small. Number 2, stay flexible. Number 3, celebrate the milestones. Number 4, seek support and accountability. Number 5, focus on the process, not just the outcome. So remember, setting realistic goals is a skill that improves with practice. So practice. Practice doesn't make perfect. It makes what? Progress. Right. So be patient with yourself, stay committed, and celebrate the progress you make along the way. You got this, friend. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you aren't already, be sure to subscribe to Beyond Broken Hungry wherever you get your podcasts so you get notified every time a new episode drops. It would also mean the world to me if you rate, review, and share the podcast too so more people can join the BBH tribe. Until next time, you got this, friend.